Road construction projects, a common occurrence everyone was familiar with, and for those affected by it, dreads. But what most people don't realize is that prior to the orange barrels and traffic congestion, there are a whole host of individuals, organizations, and agencies working to record and protect our cultural heritage. This is a story of how a simple road project to improve a dangerous curve and the discovery of a unique artifact led to new insights about the Shakers. The Shakers could be considered one of the longest-lasting religious experiments in American history. Their views on pacifism, feminism, and simplistic living still holds true for today. So who were the Shakers? For that, we asked Dr. Carol Medlicott.
The United Society of Believers in Christ's Second Appearing is a movement that began in Manchester, England in the 1740s, 1750s. It was founded by a young woman named Anne Lee. She was an illiterate working class woman who became part of a group of radical Quakers. From the radical Quaker congregation, they began to worship in a particular manner that involved a lot of dancing and convulsing and shaking. And from that, they developed this term, the Shaking Quakers, which morphed into the Shakers.
50 years ago, the National Historic Preservation Act was enacted. It requires agencies, such as transportation departments, to take into account their project's effects to historic buildings, structures, and archaeological sites. The hazardous curve near Lebanon, Ohio, surrounded by farm fields and woodlots, had to be realigned. Smoothing out the sharp right-angled curve is a simple task, but what concerned archaeologists, historians, and many local residents is what laid alongside the road. In the summer of 2005, a team of archaeologists and historians excavated the buried remains of the North family lot of Union Village, the first and largest Shaker community in Ohio. Dr. Bruce Allman, archaeologist with the Ohio Department of Transportation, organized the project.
Initially, we knew through historical accounts and early maps that the Shakers had a community here. Our team of archaeologists and staff and historians brought together as much information as we could through written record, old photographs, in order to get an idea of where the buildings were, what kind of buildings they were. We used different techniques to try to find things on the surface that would indicate where the buildings are, as well as instruments that can look below the ground and pinpoint where foundations occur.
There were 3 large brick buildings fronting the curve at the North family lot that survived into the 20th century. All 3 are known by name. The Sisters Carding Shop, the largest brick workshop and probably the last Shaker constructed brick building in the entire community. In the middle sat the T-shaped communal house and kitchen. Lying about 300 feet south of the communal house, the elongated Brothers Broom Shop was yet another impressive workshop. This building was the home of the pottery industry at Union Village between 1836 and 1850.
I'm glad I am a Shaker, I'm glad I am a Shaker, I'm glad I am a Shaker, ye followers of the land.
The Shaker relationship with the outside world was very complicated. The Shakers believed that the world was basically a fallen world. However, they could not be entirely isolated, nor did they want to be entirely isolated. They wanted to be an example to the world, and they also wanted to do business with the world, and they hoped that ultimately they would continue to draw converts from the world.
Villages were separated into family lots, typically arranged in cardinal directions and around the center family lot, which of course connected the Shaker village to the outside world.
In most Shaker communities west of the Appalachians, main roads went through Shaker communities. So Union Village, Ohio sat on the main road between Cincinnati and Dayton. So there were constantly people from the world passing through Union Village. And the Shakers wanted it that way.
All of the family lots at Union Village, including the North family lot, were expected to be self-sufficient. This means that each of those lots had their own shops and places to manufacture their own goods. The members of the North family lot produced many items for sale with the outside world, including homespun cloth, yarn rugs, brooms, and what the archaeologists didn't know, clay tobacco pipes. While historians are combing through the numerous diaries and journals, Andy Sewell and his team were uncovering a treasure trove of information buried beneath the ground.
The Shakers left behind lots of journals. Lots of people came and wrote about the Shakers, so it seems like we already know everything we need to know from what's written down. That's not quite the case. When you use archaeology, you're looking at the material remains left behind that nobody talked about, nobody read about. It might tell a different type of story. At the North family lot, for example, we have a tale of a Shaker pottery, which nobody really understood or talked about. We knew that Shakers did use smoking pipes, but the sheer numbers that were coming up was more than you would expect to just be casual loss or discard. It was starting to suggest perhaps manufacturer.
Tobacco use was surely a bad habit and detrimental to the health of the brothers and sisters of Union Village, much the same as it is for today's users. But the way in which smoking was viewed and conducted by the Shakers was different. Dr. Kim McBride explains.
We think the Shakers had a more ritualized use of the smoking pipes, which is when all the members would come together, or at least a select group of the members, for a smoking meeting or a union meeting involving smoking. And from the descriptions of these meetings, they were pretty intense with, just billowing waves of smoke would pour out when a window was opened, and some members might have to leave because the smoke made them nauseous.
The numerous documented accounts describing these union meetings, also referred to as union smokes, were frequent and highly structured meetings. In 1822, Mary Dyer writes,
"Every Sunday and Wednesday night, they have their union meeting, and the spiritual husband and wife sit opposite each other, though so close as to get fire from each other's pipes. They converse together in any little chit-chat, as the people of the world do."
Shakers used tobacco pipes. But how did the archaeologists discover that they were actually making those pipes here? This molten lump provided the answer. The Shakers used a ceramic crock to protect and hold the delicate tobacco pipes during firing. But something happened while it was being fired, resulting in the crock melting and collapsing. To explore this idea further, we got in touch with Greg Schooner, a noted redware potter and a person very familiar with Shaker pottery.
What I believe happened at Union Village, this crock was set on this crock in the kiln, and this might have gone all the way to the top of the kiln. This stack of crocks might have been 8 deep, filled with pipes. So the one on the bottom is carrying an enormous load of weight.
That's true.
So as this starts to soften, that pressure is like a vice pushing down on it, and it will absolutely cause that collapse in there. And that's something that's pretty common. I love it when I find an antique piece that has done that, that has that deformation, because it tells a real story about what happened in the kiln.
The crock failed due to excessive heat, which melted it and the tobacco pipes inside. To archaeologists, this artifact was the missing piece of the puzzle.
One day during the excavations, I was called over, and my archaeologist pulled this thing out of the pit and said, "What is this?" Got it up, started brushing off the dirt and pulling away, and it dawned on me, these are pipes. These are fused together. That was the aha moment. This is the piece of evidence we needed to prove that the Shakers were making pipes on an industrial scale at Union Village.
While this discovery was being made, historians combing through the Shakers' numerous diaries and journals found that the Shakers were shipping tens of thousands of tobacco pipes east to Daniel Hawkins, the deacon at New Lebanon, New York, the leading Shaker settlement.
May 24th, 1841. David Parkhurst starts to Cincinnati with 7,000 tobacco pipes to send to Daniel Hawkins in New York.
September 14th, 1843. Peter Boyd to Cincinnati with 7,600 pipes for David Hawkins in the East.
May 8, 1844, Richard Pelham to Cincinnati for 16 boxes of pipes and books for New Lebanon.
October 12, 1844, we put up 2 barrels of pipes for Daniel Hawkins. One barrel contained 4,150, of which 2,400 were thin. The other barrel contained 3,800, making 7,950 in all.
The diary accounts are informative, but limited. They don't tell us what the pipes look like. It was time to let the artifacts fill in the gap. The shaker tobacco pipes are similar in style to other commercially made pipes of the era. Short and stemless pipes requiring the user to insert a hollowed reed or stick into the shank, but there are differences.
One of the interesting things about the pipes found at Pleasant Hill and other Shaker villages is that they don't look like the pipes we typically find on 19th century domestic sites. Usually they're glazed, they might have geometrical designs, they might have faces carved into them. And the pipes found at the Shaker villages are all the same, and they're uniquely undecorated.
With the knowledge of what the pipes looked like, it was easy to compare the tobacco pipes from Union Village to other pipes found at Shaker villages across the country. What was readily apparent is that the Shakers in Ohio were making the same pipes as their fellow believers in other Shaker villages.
This is very unusual, and again it heightens the importance of union, that all the villages were using similar molds, not just allowed to go out and get their own molds and make the kind of pipes that were common outside of Shaker society.
Acceptance of the indulgent practice of tobacco use was short-lived. Just as the believers strove for spiritual harmony, they also sought physical well-being. As early as 1840, smoking was considered a non-essential indulgence. An anti-tobacco article published in 1871 by a Shaker elder declared that
tobacco is a moral and spiritual degenerator and a physical disorganizer.
Tobacco use among the Shakers was waning, and despite being a commodity for sale, the clay pipes represented outdated customs and worldly habits. By 1852, pipe production ceased and the pottery shop was completely refurbished to accommodate the production of flat brooms. The Shaker tobacco pipes truly touch upon what it was to be Shaker in the early 19th century. It manifests the Shaker's sense of uniformity and practicality, plain but graceful, simple but functional, similar to its contemporary counterparts, but still distinct.
The Shaker tobacco pipes reminds us of how many other stories lay beneath the ground surface, and how a simple road construction project can reveal those stories.